to do this. Pressing
record.
All right, I think we're good to go.
Sweet.
All right, folks, thank you so much for joining us again.
Once again,
for another episode of
Old-Timey
Times with Jamie
and Meredith.
And we are coming at you because we just have to get out there our thoughts about the movie we watched this week. And in full disclosure, we're going to try to pump through this. We're going to try to keep it lively and alive, but we've already done this once.
This is take two.
This is take two. We fully just recorded 51 minutes of audio, and that's the lie. We didn't record it. We talked for that long.
It was great.
And we certainly thought we recorded it, but instead of pressing record, I had pressed play. Which
classic.
Totally
understandable.
Doing it. So we're here again because we got to let you know about it. We're not going to leave you hanging.
It was really good. It was
a good movie, and you should watch it. So the category is Dr. Caligari's Cabinet.
The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
Yes, that's the one.
Which is what I called it before when I said to you we should watch this movie. I called it Dr. Caligari's Cabinet because I forgot the name too.
But really, it's the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Kind of makes the same message, either forwards or backwards.
Yeah, they could have really presented it either way.
So this is a movie directed by Robert Wein, Hans Jonowitz, and Karl Mayer. And I believe Hans Jonowitz and Karl Mayer wrote it. They were very influenced by like freak show culture and
their experiences in World War I, which had recently ended.
Yep, and they got together and they wrote and directed this movie. So it came out in 1920. There's some and it apparently at the time did not make
a whole lot of money, you could say. On a budget of around $12,000, it made $4,713.
Yeah,
according to Wikipedia.
So she did flop. She flop.
Didn't do so great in the box office.
But I think one that very clearly permeated iconically through culture ever
definitely.
since. So it's definitely a win in my book. And what we're gonna do right now is we're gonna let you know all about it.
Spoilers ahead, folks.
If you haven't seen it yet, go see it, and then you can get our takes on it. And we are just, we aren't experts. We are just like lovers of
film and
cinema,
culture.
As so many people are, and we're just taking time to like appreciate and acknowledge it, and
take it back in time a little bit. Something you might not watch. I might not have watched. I did watch it once with my husband actually a long time ago. Mm-hmm. I didn't remember it at all, so I'm really glad for the re-exposure and the experience, especially to be able to talk about it and enjoy the film on a whole different level. Yeah,
I think anything that is like a horror movie from back then is worth watching, because we can get so much good context, especially this one. Yeah. So this one is excellent. Let's get it going. So basically from the beginning we hear the music blast in, and it's like boom, 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 like it is here to play,
to start, and man, it captures your attention immediately. Like,
yes,
let's
it definitely
do it.
Does.
Yeah.
And it is really just kind of in your face immediately with this text, this certain aesthetic, the way that they're gonna do the subtitles in German. Also we should mention that this is a proper restored film.
The version that we watched was a fully restored, well cared for. Film representation and version of the film.
Yeah, we bought it on YouTube. So it was like very curated and moderated. So we know that this is a version that at least is true to, the original film.
To the best of our modern capabilities.
Yeah. Yes. No lost footage, well put together, kind of that sort of thing. So you can kind of clearly see that from the very beginning. Like from the first step, you're like, oh, the picture looks great.
Yeah.
The sound sounds good. It's not like a kind of like a copied that ended up on YouTube with like blown out pictures and audio and stuff like that.
Yeah.
This is a really proper film.
Yeah.
And you immediately see that. And you can start seeing the themes of like angular. You know this movie's gonna kind of play with reality, play with fantasy a little bit.
Yeah, we're gonna go on a journey together in this one.
Yeah, we're gonna step into a storybook. It's gonna be kind of like a cartoon world. And it kind of starts off by giving the credits of all the actors. And kind of the first person we are introduced to is so bam bam, and then credits. Then we open up on the scene of kind of like it. To me, it's very much like two people on a park bench.
Yeah, just chatting it up.
Yeah, but you can tell immediately that this isn't your normal park. This is like a built set with crazy trees, vines hanging over it. It's angular,
corridor-like.
Yeah, it's very, very sideshow circus kind of set. Like, this is not supposed to be reality at all.
A little twisted.
Yep, very twisted. And we come in on this gentleman kind of walking into the set and sitting next to this other guy. And this guy is like, I have a ghost problem.
I have the worst problems in the world.
Yeah, he's like, sits down, he starts complaining. He's like, I'm haunted. I'm like legit haunted all the time. It's driven me out of hearth and home. My wife and children left me. Like, I'm a haunted guy. And then we're introduced to Francis. Francis, who I confused with Alan. Quite a lot. Meredith is here to correct me, but Francis. Who is going to show us through this story. And we're introduced to him, and he's like, you think you have problems?
Buddy.
Don't fucking come up to me and say you got problems. I'm going to tell you about my problems.
I've got problems, buddy. And then this woman just walks through the scene, and they're captivated by her. And she doesn't even acknowledge them. She totally ignores them. She just walks through the center of the scene and then walks off.
Almost brushes up against their legs. Like, she walks very close to them.
But doesn't acknowledge them, doesn't look at them. She's just totally blank stared forward.
You can say she looks like she's in a slumber.
Oh, or maybe some kind of
foreshadow. And so she's kind of walking around like a zombie, and Francis is like, that's my wife. Or
that's my fiancé.
That's my fiancé. You could clearly see she's fucked, right?
We've got problems. We've been through a lot together.
She's like, we got problems. Let me tell you a story. And this is the beginning of kind of the film here. And we open up on a couple of dudes just kind of shuffling through the city. And they're like, is it Caligari first?
I think it's Caligari first. Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Okay, so first we're kind of introduced to Caligari. Yeah, that makes more sense to me. And he comes in, and he's
just walking through the streets.
He looks like a creep. Like, you can tell that this is not a good character. You can tell he's evil. Or like, shady, the kind of creep of the show. And
hair, makeup,
long,
costume,
trench coat type thing,
kind of cape thing,
long top hat. His eyes are blacked out, which is many of the eyes in this film were blacked out. I think
it's pretty common.
It was a makeup technique.
Yeah,
for a silent film. But his is clearly like he has the age makeup on, and his eyes are gross. His hair's greasy, slicked back. Like, this guy is grimy and evil.
He's got a cane. He's trouble.
Yeah. He looks like Danny DeVito and a frog. And
kind of
like that energy. He has a very like Danny DeVito, Always Sunny in Philadelphia energy to me.
Or like the Penguin in the Batman movie.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And this guy is like, he's like, okay, he's like, fair time. It's fair time. And
so we meet these two guys, and they're like, there's a fair in town.
Yeah. There's a fair going on in this angular town. And again, the sets in this town are layered. They're really constructed, deliberate sets by an artist. Like,
very artistic, very beautiful, very deep.
Yeah.
Lots of depth to them.
And like, it's kind of the approach is like, like if you see a door or something, it doesn't look like a door. It's like shaped like a triangle. It's at a weird angle. There's weird angle walls. The houses are slanted. A lot of diamond shapes. A lot of lines. A lot of
trapeziuses and
jabby, jagged edges.
Yeah, and sharp. No soft curves. No turns, anything like that. Just very sharp, very angular, and very skewed.
Yeah, there's nothing about this movie that is like set in a village, you know, or it's like a real village, or like on a scenic movie. It's like a fully built, like supposed to look like a weird, eerie set. And you can see immediately how it has a lot of those like vignette type of cutscenes. The way they film it is like a very iconic, quintessential silent movie where they have a light that like kind of circles out
and goes out and fills the screen, and then they have the pinpoint where it goes back in when they cut out of a scene.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like it has a clear artistic direction. It's all in like weird sepia colors, or this weird green color for night.
Yeah,
that's like a slimy green. It's honestly beautiful, and I immediately realized like that I've seen this before. So this is the movie that like Rob Zombie was super influenced by. It's obvious to me. And it literally, in his music video for Living Dead Girl, there's a few scenes that he recreates that are taken exactly from this movie. So like what that tells me is like this movie, we're seeing the origin of like, you know, stuff that Rob Zombie eventually ended up like iconicizing with like House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Reject and Three from Hell and shit like that. Like he was so influenced by that. So you can kind of start seeing the beginning of this like sort of freak show trope in cinema.
Yeah, as it carried through time too, how it still comes back to that original iconography and those images and the contrast and the shadow and the light and how that played together, and how things are disturbed and uncertain and disrupted in some way, and how that's carried through by using those same kind of angles and colors and light. And we mentioned too, like Tim Burton taking Nightmare Before Christmas. There's a lot of moments where it's like, wow, that's very Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah, like someone watched this movie and then worked on Nightmare Before Christmas, you know, like it's really similar feels for that. And like even there's a lot that I can see in Edward Scissorhands from this movie. Clearly, it's really good. It's just really good.
Well done. They pack a lot into an hour and 17 minutes.
Yeah, they do. It's really worth the time. So we follow.
If you can hear that, it's an ice cream truck.
That is an ice cream truck. It's staying in. So there's nothing we can do about it. So this guy, Caligari, he's like, I'm a shady dude, clearly, and I'm gonna go, like, set up this thing for their fair.
I'm gonna go to the clerk's office.
The city
I'm gonna get a permit because I gotta participate in this fair that's going around town.
Yeah.
Because that's just what I do.
Side note, city clerk, kind of a jerk. Like, not a nice guy. He's sitting on a way too tall stool that's at a weird angle.
If you like weird chairs, this is also a movie for you.
Oh, it's like Dr. Seuss, like, too, in ways, you know? Like, the chairs look weird. Anyway, it's a whole vibe. And city clerk jerk. He's just like, not a nice guy. He's like, I'm too busy. I'm so cool. Look at all the paperwork I have to do. And this Dr. Caligari is like, he's like, okay, well, I need a permit to show my show at the fair. And he's like, well, what do you got? And Dr. Caligari is like, I have
a somnambulist.
A somnambulist. Which we Googled means sleepwalker.
Sleepwalker. So I'm a sleepwalker.
Yeah, he's like, I got this sideshow freak, somnambulist, and I want to show him at the show. And I guess the city clerk was like, all right.
Cool.
And
here's your permit.
Meanwhile, you are introduced to these two guys who are like besties. It's Francis and Alan. Francis, who is telling the story.
And Alan, who's his buddy.
Who's just his good friend. And they're like, wow, we gotta go to the fair and it's coming and like this will be so fun. There's a moment where I think this is during this time where that girl walks in.
They walk through a scene with this lady and they're like, ooh, hello. But we don't know her name yet. We just see her and they're like, hi there.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, ladies, like lady. And then they talk about her later. They're like, we both like this girl.
Clearly we're both in love with her.
We'll let her choose.
Because we're nice like that. We're going to let her choose.
Yep. And
then we're going to remain friends.
No matter what happens.
We'll be bros for life.
We're bros for life. And much like me and Meredith, bros for life. and so they're like, it's just showing how good of friends they are, to really pack the punch later emotionally, I assume. But
is this where they see
I think they see the flyer at this point
on the wall where it's like, murderer!
Yeah, it's like, there was a murderer. Guess what? The city clerk died.
First death.
Fucking asshole. I mean, that was harsh. That was harsh on the city clerk. But he was rude.
He was a bit rude. He was a bit on a power trip.
Yeah, I mean, did he deserve to die? I think that's fair. Yeah.
Wow.
No. And so they're like, city clerk died, saw it on the flyer. They're like, well, that's a bummer. Let's go to the fair. So they go to the fair and they are like, again, this is a really iconic scene that keeps being referred back to time and time and again, is this fair setup they have in the set they built for it.
Yeah.
And it has so many layers, so many like depth and different like fields of range or range
perspective, and there's like a mountain range kind of picturesque in the background.
There's a layer that has like a merry-go-round on it to show distance.
And the fair that they're at, and there's buildings in kind of the mid-foreground and the mid-ground, and there's like a path at some point that she ends up walking through.
Yeah, like the girl later on in the movie like zigzags through this town.
Into the picture, basically, and like through it.
And and it's a really cool scene. There's a monkey in this scene.
There's a monkey on the cart. Yeah, chilling in the fair, and people are walking by and they're like,
town.
Monkey, you're so funny.
Oh yeah. Yep, like everybody's having a good time. It's fair time.
Yep.
And then we're kind of see Dr. Caligari being like, come one, come all to my show.
Down.
And they bring people in the tent and he shows him his sleepwalker. And this is a really pretty scene. It is when they reveal like the monster of it, which I would say, like, there are elements to this story that is pretty classic when it comes to monster story.
Kind of some Frankenstein vibes in there a little bit.
Yep, which we've seen before with the last two, like the Dracula and the Golem, which were two movies that we watched before this.
Nosferatu and the Golem.
Yep, and it's a really, really cool scene. It's a very good introduction scene. He's like, look, and he opens his cabinet.
The infamous cabinet.
Yep, the cabinet. And then you see this sleepwalking man, the somnambulist. And it's like, you find out later that his name is Cesare. And so it's Cesare, and it's just this guy sleeping in a box, which I'm like, okay, so when it first started, I was like, what? This guy is a sleepwalker as an expedition?
Yeah, I was
expedition. Like, that's not going to be exciting at all. As an exhibit. Expedition. He's like, I was like, maybe it's going, like, maybe the plot is going that this Cesare guy is faking it, and it's like a scheme to make money, like a snake oil type thing. And I was like, where is this going? I was like, that sounds boring, but whatever. And he's like, this man has been sleeping is 23, been sleeping for 23 years.
Day and night.
Yep, and I can wake him up, and I can, I can wake him up.
So let's wake him up. So he does his thing. I'm your master, Dr. Caligari.
Yeah.
La, 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 la.
Yeah, and he's like, it's super cool, guys, watch. and So he wakes up Cesare.
And Cesare's face upon reacting and the awakening is very well done. It's very drawn out. They take time to do it. Once again, they take a lot of time to do things in these older films, whereas now we're kind of like, let's get to the action. Yeah, bang, bang, doom, 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 doom. And this was very like deliberate and very paced well. And
oh my God, yeah. I would say it does take its time, but is really palatable.
Packs a punch too. They do a lot in the hour and 17 minutes, as I mentioned.
Because I mean, there were straight up moments in Dracula where I'm like, I can see how this is not palatable for like a 2020 mind, where like the ridiculous things that they do. Same with the Golem. Like there's some pacing in that movie, but again, this is a restored
version, yes.
Like probably a re-edited kind of version. So it's possible that this,
was adjusted for pacing. That's true.
Yeah, it could have been. Whereas Dracula and Gotham,
Gollum, yeah.
Was not. So to be fair, this was a very well reproduced movie or restored movie, and the pacing is great in it. But they know where to take their time, like the scene where he's stumbling out and he's waking up, and first his nose is flare, and then his like lips tremble, and then his eyes move behind his eyelids and they open, and he stumbles forward, and he kind of, to me, looks like it's elegant in a way. To me, he's a very gaunt face, literally black triangles like drawn under his eyes. And the way he comes out, it's almost like a dancer, like as if he's like taking a couple ballet steps into like fifth position or whatever it might be. And he has these really skin tight, skinny jeans on, kind of a black jacket, kind of just a plain top, very greased down hair, gaunt features. But to me, he looks like a male ballet dancer. So he is, I think, again, this is where you can see a lot of Tim Burton. It's beautiful. It's like creepy and gorgeous.
Yeah.
So now that I'm paranoid, I'm going to keep checking that the audio is on. So we're introduced to this guy, and Dr. Caligari is like, now ask him a question. He's also a psychic.
Yeah, he can see the future. He's seen the past. He knows things. Yeah. Just ask him. Ask him anything.
It's like, how interesting is this exhibit? He's a sleepwalking psychic. Come on.
You gotta see it.
It's so good.
So cut to the audience, and we see Francis and Alan chilling in the audience. Like, wow, we haven't seen them in a while, but here they are. They're at the show. Besties at the show.
Besties at the show. And Alan. Okay, Alan is like, this is fun. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ask him a question.
He's burning with a question.
He's so excited. He's like kid in candy shop. He's like, oh my God, yay. And he goes up to Cesare and he's like, when will I die?
Yo, just a light question for you.
Yeah.
When am I going to die?
And Cesare says, you won't make it to dawn.
Oh, dum dum.
Dum dum dum. And Alan is like,
freaking out.
And he goes through all these beautiful silent movie facial expressions.
Lovely.
Like a million of them. And
at one point it looks like he's laughing, and then it looks like he's about to cry, and he's like very going confused.
Insane. And he's like, what? And
Francis runs over and he's like, let's go, dude.
Yeah, he's like, well, that was weird. Let's go. And so they leave, and then later in that night, what happens? But Alan turns up dead.
Wakes up dead the next day.
Wakes up dead. He arises dead.
But there's this great scene where they show him. They don't really show him being murdered, but they show the silhouettes of it along the wall.
The shadows
of it, and the long pointy thing, and the figure creeping over him,
it's like munned out. And so R.I.P.
Alan.
So sad.
Doesn't make it till dawn.
Him and the clerk, both dirt nap. And so I feel genuinely bad about being mean to the clerk earlier. I want to take this chance to publicly apologize to the clerk
for any previous comments.
I don't know why I was so angry with you before, but you're just kind of a jerk, and that's how I feel. And so Alan dead.
So Francis finds out, some dude shows up at his place and is like, your best friend has deceased in the night. And Francis has his own moment of, what?
Yep. So Francis here is played by, did we get it? No, we don't know who Francis is played by here. But,
one of the names on this list.
I should have written it down. But either way, Francis is a really good physical actor.
Francis is. Yeah. He pulls it off.
And I honestly can't remember if I said this podcast or last podcast, but I think the overacting in the way silent movie stars have to overact and need to overact actually works for this movie.
Yeah.
Whereas
things are already kind of drawn out and cartoonish and overdone and over the top.
Yeah.
And so the acting that's over the top is very like, oh, well, it fits.
Matches.
Yeah.
It matches the set, which is supposed to be like gregarious,
twisted,
and weird.
Yeah.
And it matches the music. So the way I see it is like in Gotham or Gollum. Gotham. I'm tired, man. The Gollum and in Dracula or Nosferatu, the music was like, well thought out and definitely appropriate to a scene, but like just kind of
orchestral throughout, I would say.
Kind of just piece of music after piece of music, where it's this movie used audio to like exaggerate movement. So it'd be like bum bum zoop,
woo, and right when somebody moves.
Well, not like that. Literally, none of that happened. But you know what I mean.
You'll see it when you watch it. It's amazing how certain movements will match the sound that's happening and the music that's happening, and even these moments where it's just these like creepy, like at one point or a couple points, it sounded like there was a train, and I was like, "What is that? Where's that coming from?
Yeah.
Like, what is going on?" And it really disturbing in a way, like taking you into the story but out of yourself, and
and then there was another really great part where this is later on in the show where, speaking of audio,
if you can hear it, it's the ice cream truck again.
Jam out.
There's a different scene.
Oh yeah, later on in the show where Dr. Caligari, you are kind of getting his origin story, and he's going crazy. And they have audio whispers in it, along with the music, and it's barely noticeable, but it's there, and
it's creepy.
So
it's unnerving.
They use really subtle, ambiguous things, and to me, again, it's very dance-like. This movie is choreographed like a dance, and it's all supposed to be a cartoony, which really works well with silent films, whereas like there's huge disconnect. I think in other movies that I've seen, which is only, again, this is like a new project for us, but with the Gollum, like the overacting in the Gollum did not match the scene because the scenes were supposed to be realistic
and taken seriously and taken with great weight and great gravitas. And here it's very much like, we're on a journey together. Come with us. Come
this
one.
This is a Dr. Seuss book, a twisted Dr. Seuss tale.
Yeah.
So they do that. Where am I? Where were we?
So Alan is dead.
Alan's dead. Yep, Alan's dead. And Francis
has found out, and he goes to the constabulary or whatever the police are called in this time in this place.
And
he's all like,
I'm gonna avenge my friend's death.
I'm gonna figure out what is happening here.
Yeah. And he's like, Alan was my bestie. We all knew that. And now he's dead. And now I'm going to fuck someone and stay up.
I'm going to find out.
Yeah.
And by the way, we were at this fair, and this guy, this somnambulist guy was like, you're not going to make it till morning, yo. So we should maybe go talk to that guy.
Yes. Yeah. And so some of the policemen go over to Dr. Caligari's house. And some of the policemen are, I guess, I don't know, just like hanging out back there. But a couple things happen at once during this part of the movie. We're going to Dr. Caligari's house, and the police are questioning questioning him, being like, you have this fucking dude that's sleeping that just told this guy who died this morning.
Before that happened, we meet the Prowler creeping around town, right?
Yeah. To me, it's like they kind of go back and forth. At least the way I'm remembering it. And they they like cut to like, okay, so this prowler guy is creeping around the city. Why? We don't know.
He's lurking about.
I said this in the lost footage, but he weird plot of the story. Weird plot point of the story is this guy.
Yeah, this guy's an odd one.
And, like, don't get invested in it. And, like, don't try to logic it out. It doesn't make any sense, really. But
presence is a mystery, for sure.
But this guy is prowling, and he's about to kill someone in a house, and the police, some woman hangs out the window, is like, I'm a murderer! And the police come running. They catch
all these
this
people
dude.
Come running out of the dark, and they're like coming in to get this guy, and he goes running, and they capture him.
And they're like, "Oh, well, we got the guy.
They got him with a pointy thing
that murdered the clerk,
murdered Alan,
and now about to catch him in a murder. This is our guy. This has to be our guy."
Yeah.
And so they're kind of questioning him, and the police at Caligari's house are like looking, getting Caligari to be like, okay, let me see the somnambulist.
Yeah, like at first they're outside, and well, at first we cut to Caligari, and he's in his house, and he's just chilling on his couch. He's all like, I love my couch. With this, sipping tea or doing something. And then he gets up, and he's like, I'm going to check out my somnambulist. And he opens his couch, and it's the cabinet, the infamous cabinet once again.
Yeah. So
fully functional furniture.
He lives in a tiny house situation.
Like a trailer kind of a thing.
Trailer on
skewed.
like
maybe on wheels.
Boxes. I don't know. It's a very small place, so it's having convertible furniture is central when you're in a tiny house. You know what I mean? You gotta work with what you got. So it's a coffin cabinet / couch, and.
So he checks out his dude, and he's all like, my somnambulist. And then he ends up hearing the knock at the door, so he puts his rearrangement back in couch mode, and he goes outside, and he's like, what do you want? And they're all like, we want to talk to your somnambulist. And he's all like, no. And then they pull out a piece of paper, and he's all like, no. Mm-hmm. And then he makes faces, and he thinks about it for a while. Once again, they take time to show things. He's contemplating, and then he's like, okay, you may go in. And they let him in, and then he's talking. Then they open the cabinet once again, and he's very gaunt looking, and
and they're like checking him out,
poke at him, and they're like, "What is going on with this thing?"
Meanwhile, back at the police station, the constabulary,
or whatever it's called back in the
day, they're questioning this guy that they just caught trying to murder someone, and they're like, well, you're the murderer, right? And he's like, no, actually.
I swear to you, I'm not the murderer.
It's like, I'm not the murderer of the other two. Yes, you did catch me trying to murder one more person, but I didn't murder the other two.
I swear to you.
Let me tell you, just hear me out,
Let me tell you why.
And so it's an actual, like, cut to subtitled scene where he's like, I wanted to rouse up suspicion about the other two.
Or the real murderer.
So I figured I would go murder, and that would...
with a similar weapon, and then that would cause people to want to investigate this even more.
Yeah, I was trying to help you guys get on at your shit, you know what I mean? And and the truth is that guy is really not the murderer.
He's really telling the truth.
So
I wouldn't believe him personally, but he is telling the truth.
But he is absolutely telling the truth.
And the police believe him. They're like, okay, we need to keep investigating.
This poor man woke up that day and was like, I have got to help in any way I can.
Yeah. But they did go and tell Francis and the other cops when they were at Caligari's place. They run in with a flyer before that happens, and they're all like, we found the murderer. And like Caligari makes these great faces.
Yeah.
He does this weird, creepy, smirky smile, like a sinister smile, and then he does this sinister laugh, and there's not even like ha 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 subtitles over it or anything like that. You can just tell that he's like ha 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 mwah.
Yeah, like just a really good creepy moment. Yeah. And so the heat's off Caligari for now because
and he's excited.
They don't know that they think that they already caught the murderer, which it doesn't turn out to be the murderer, but they think
they believe him. So now they're all like, let's go back and investigate.
Yeah, and so the heat is off for a second. Meanwhile, you get a kind of a little story plot from this girl, who we end up knowing as Jane.
Jane, we find out her name towards the end once again.
And she's like, well, I can't find my dad anywhere.
I don't know where he is.
And she's like, I gotta go out looking for him. So
this is where she ends up at the place where there's usually the monkey cart, but the monkey cart isn't there.
Yeah, she goes back to the fair, and this time, instead of having this fair scene loaded with, like, moving parts and people, it's still, which is very eerie.
And empty.
And,
and she goes walking through, like, down these stairs and back into the background, and that's when we really recognize the depth of that scene.
Yeah.
It's not a static shot. It's really, she goes way far back into it.
It's not painted. There are actual layers to this. And it's beautiful. So, yeah, and she stumbles along Caligari's tent, which I'm guessing, like, maybe a couple days have passed since the...
Day or 2 or 3, who knows?
Yeah, again, this is a part of silent movies where, like, my brain's like, feed me more information.
How long has it been? How many days?
How do I logically jump from here to there? And, so
she meets Caligari. We don't really know why, like... Why Caligari and her get together is kind of a mystery. She just shows up at his tent or something, and
she's like, "You see my dad?
Yeah, do you know where my dad is?
Like, don't
the doctor?
Yeah." And he's like, "No, but you want to see what's in my cabinet?" Like a creep, like a real creep. And she's like, "Okay." And he
opens the cabinet. He opens one side, and then he opens the other side, and he does this amazing little hop. It is the coolest thing.
Meredith's favorite part
It's my favorite part of this whole movie, the way he hops over after he opens the cabinet. He's like, look at what I've got.
He's like, I'm a little bunny. and she's like, she has this really wonderful actress moment. Silent movie. She's like, oh, like she's so overwhelmed by this gaunt character that looks exactly like Edward Scissorhands. Like, it really totally. Does. And even the mannerisms has very similar mannerisms, and she like puts her hand over her forehead, and she's like, oh, and she runs away all dramatically, and then what happens after that?
I think we go right to her. Do we go right to her bedroom?
Oh yeah,
she's in bed. She's in this great bed. She's got these like long flowy sheets, and it's beautiful. It's like a princess bed.
Yep, and you see, this is like later on in the night, that it is revealed that it is Cesare.
Cesare approaches her bed with a big, long, pointy thing.
Yeah.
Creeps forward.
Creeps in. And he, like, goes up to murder her. Like, he raises the pointy thing. And he can't do it.
He can't do it.
Because she's so hot.
He's all like, she's too pretty to murder.
She is gorgeous. I don't want to hack her up. And she wakes up, and he
reaches down and touches her hair, and then and she tries to fight him. She actually tries to fight him off. She's all like, "No, let me go, you jerk store! I'm out of here,
you jerk store." And which is different from the other couple of movies we've seen, where the female character is very weak and very quick to faint.
Yes, just the damsel in distress.
Is it true that Jane does faint eventually? Yes.
Yes. Yeah, she faints right about here.
She's still the damsel in distress. We're not breaking any major ground, but it was cool to see a woman fight.
She fought for it.
She really fought.
Like,
they gave her a good role. So
he carries her off. She slumps over, and he carries her, like you mentioned last time, like luggage.
Yeah.
Like just around the hips. She's dangling forward, just like limped over.
Yeah.
And I don't understand how he's carrying her like this. You can't just carry a body around like that. Bodies are heavy.
It must have been a dummy for some of those scenes.
Must have been. But when he drops her later, so he's carrying her down, and then people come in, like, oh, there's these two guys who are sleeping head to head in their own bedroom together that live in the house with Jane, and it doesn't make any sense why they would be sharing a room
in that position.
But they do.
And
they all go running into a room, and they're like, where is she? Oh, heavens to Betsy.
And then they're like, we got to follow that monster who took her. So they're chasing them through the town. And again, these really iconic scenes that you will recognize pretty much immediately as like a Rob Zombie
or Nightmare Before Christmas, or...
Yeah, you can just see the inspiration for a lot of these, like, you know, these angular... walkways that stretch onward and upward,
and
it's so cool. And then, so, I mean, eventually Cesare just drops her.
They're closing in, so he just drops her to the ground.
Yep.
And goes running off and has his little adventure.
And then they're like, oh my gosh, Jane, like, who did this to you? And she was like, Cesare! It was him! And they're like, Alan's like, well, I've been keeping my eyes out. Fuck. Francis is like, I've been keeping my eyes out.
He's been hanging out front of Caligari's place this whole time.
Yeah.
Outside the trailer.
He's been keeping an eye, stalking a little bit.
Yeah, he's just looking in the window and he sees Cesare in the cabinet all night. And he's like, couldn't have been him.
Yeah.
Crazy lady.
They're like, while you were being taken by Cesare, I saw him in his box.
All night long.
And
like 4 hours. That's not weird.
And he's like, we'll check it out though, because weird things are happening in this
She's
town.
all like, I know I saw Cesare. Like, don't tell me I'm a liar. I know what I saw.
This is not hysteria. And so she, they go ahead and they go find Dr. Caligari. And they go to his trailer sideshow circus wagon thing. And they're like, we need to see this. And he's like, obviously panicking on the inside. And they kind of force their way in, grab the cabinet, bring it outside, open it up. And before they open it up, Dr. Caligari's like, I'm out of here.
He goes running.
He knows.
He takes tail.
He knows it's sus. And they open up the cabinet and there's a dummy in there.
There's a dummy inside.
There's a dummy!
The way this guy spikes it on the ground, he throws it over the coffin thing. He's like, no, what is this thing?
He's like, it was Cesare. Like, when he was spying on Caligari's house, the thing that he saw in the box was a dummy.
It was a dummy. It was
and Cesare was out murdering. And he's like,
about to, but he couldn't do it.
Follow that Dr. Caligari! And they run after Calamari. And they're like, they run after him, and Calamari is like ahead of him, and where is he running? He's running home, baby.
Yeah, and guess where that is?
He works and lives in an insane asylum.
He's running to the insane asylum.
So
he goes running up the stairs.
Yeah.
And Francis comes running in after him, and he stops these 2 doctors that are walking in.
Like, have you seen this guy?
Have you seen this guy? Is this guy a patient of yours? Does he live here? And they're all like, well no. But we'll take you to the director.
Like, you should talk to the director. So they take him up to the door. And I just love this scene because, again, it's just something that, Tim Burton snagged. And, I think...
The hallway outside of Caligari's office.
Yeah, and that weird door.
The director's office.
That's on a leaning wall. Like, it's just so cool how they did the sets. It's too cool, man.
Yeah.
And he goes into this door along this hallway. And the director, like, raises his head from the bench. And
that scene clearly creeped me out because I couldn't recognize what I was seeing. I was like, what am I watching right now? What's even happening?
Yeah.
And guess who it is, as a matter of fact.
It's Dr. Caligari
himself.
And
he's the director.
He's the director of the insane asylum. And then Francis has another lovely freak out moment where he's like, whoa! Like a big reveal. And he runs back downstairs to the doctor, and he's falling over, and he's like, oh no, that is Caligari. They're one and the same. And the doctors are like, oh no. And
we need to capture him.
Yeah, and they're like, we'll put him under observation. So they kind of like let him go to bed or whatever it is, have him under observation. And then Francis, the doctors, go into his office.
And the police go into his office. They're like, do-do-do-do-do, when you sneak in.
And
they're going through his stuff.
This is the first point where we see an actual book work as subtitles, do the same job as subtitles were doing.
And where the book is giving us more of the plot. It's moving the story forward once again. We've seen this before.
Beforehand, it would literally like cut between scenes to the scene of subtitles. Like it wasn't a book that they were reading from like we had seen in the Golem.
It was dialogue. Yeah, it was a lot of dialogue-based description. It was really just dialogue from what I can remember until they got to this particular book. Where they're like, what's going on here?
And the way they do it is they show you the book and they put the subtitles on it. And this book is about a character named Dr. Caligari, who is a fair goer, has a sleepwalker do dirty deeds. Yeah, like manipulates a sleepwalker. And
this is his book that they found. They're all like, whoa.
Yeah, they're like, well, this is telling. And this is where we really realize that Cesare is a victim.
Yes, because this crazy doctor has decided to use him and to see if he can do these nefarious deeds that he would never do that he would find repugnant in his regular life,
exactly.
in his waking life, if he wasn't such a somnambulist.
Yeah, so he's being experimented on because they also look at Dr. Caligari's diary. And his diaries,
named My Diary.
Yeah, the diary might as well have been like, I read this book and now I'm going to do this. But he's like, yeah, now I can finally, like, oh, they brought a sleepwalker in, a somnambulist in. I can't wait to use him for this experiment that I've been reading about in this book.
They show a nice flashback of Caligari making up his plot. Like, ooh, finally I can live out my wildest dream.
And they see him, like, meeting a Cesare for the first time. And then he's just like, yes! I love shaking you, my boy. This dead body of, like, I can't wait to manipulate this person. So you find out that Dr. Caligari is insane. He's an insane guy. And then he gets put in a straitjacket and thrown into his cell.
Yep, he goes to attack as they try to capture him. And there's push and pull and all that drama, all that silent movie drama. And then they put him into a straitjacket and they lock him into a cell.
Yeah, and then we're back at the beginning. We're back with those two gentlemen sitting on the bench at the park. And this guy who was originally claiming that he was haunted was like, you win. It's like, yeah, that story is fucked up. Like,
your story is worse than
You're
mine.
right, Francis.
I'm sorry about that.
Like, Francis, like, told you. They go back to the...
They get up and they walk away and they walk into the next scene.
Yeah.
And guess where they walk into?
They go to the insane asylum.
They're back in the insane asylum. And the only reason I could really tell that is because of the floor. There's this great starburst on the floor in the first room, like the bottom floor of the insane asylum. And it's just the coolest thing. It's so, like, the imagery is so sharp and so pronounced. It was like, that's how I recognize that we're back in the insane asylum. Otherwise, I think I would have been really confused.
Yeah. And so they return to, like, the lobby of the insane asylum. And
there's all these people walking around, and they're all like,
there's a guy yelling at the wall. There's just like insane asylum patients walking around, and you see Cesare, and he's like, "This was Cesare. This is the guy who traumatized my wife." Then they close up on Jane, and you see Jane as a patient too, and Francis is like, "Will you marry me now?" And she's like, just an interesting line. She says, queens are not free to follow their heart.
Yeah.
And I think that's so interesting. And
so she goes off. She's like, I cannot be with you in this very beautiful, dramatic way. And then she goes off.
Yeah. And then you see who comes down from, like, the grand staircase is the new director.
The new director.
And dun, dun, dun!
Guess who it is?
It's Dr. Caligari.
Once again. But at first I didn't recognize him because now he's cleaned up. He's in a nice kind of jacket. He's in a nice little suit thing. He looks more like a doctor. He's got clean hair. He's got, like, clean makeup around the eyes.
He looks completely different.
He doesn't have a cane. He doesn't have the weird top hat. He's just himself now. He's
all
like,
he looks good.
Yeah, he doesn't have his glasses. He just looks like a normal dude. Like, hey, I'm running my show here.
And Francis freaks out, and he's like, what? No, that's Dr. Caligari. You don't believe me. You don't believe me.
You think I'm crazy.
And then they put Francis in a straitjacket and put him in a padded cell.
And the way that scene is shot is like exactly or almost exactly the same as the shot that they showed when they put Caligari into the insane asylum room the first time. Like, it's really
supposed to be
exact
confusing.
Same imagery, the exact same way that the doctors walked out. They're in their white lab coats, the orderlies and the doctors, and it's just like exactly the same. And I just thought that was really cool and really well done.
Yeah,
it's like, who's the crazy one here? Do we really even know?
Yeah, like who's telling the truth? Like,
who's telling the story? Whose
story is this? Yeah. And Caligari looks at Francis and he's like, well, now I know what he thinks I'm Caligari,
now
which
that
means I know how to treat him.
I know how to cure him.
So there's...
And then, we zoom in, and then end.
The end. And it's now that I go through it a second time, maybe, like, this whole thing was Caligari trying to see what Francis's illness was.
Oh, interesting.
You know what I mean? Like, he staged the murders. He staged the show in the fair. which means, so at the end when he's like, oh, you don't believe me, he comes down as the director. He's like, no, this was all a show, like a Truman Show situation to diagnose you so I can find out how to treat you.
That's another possibility.
Yeah.
So we really don't know who the crazy one is. Is Francis actually right and he's been thrown in the insane asylum? He's been 5150'd?
Yep.
Yep. Because Caligari's really in control of all of this and he really did like get a somnambulist to commit these murders and he was about to murder Jane and then the monster couldn't do it. Yeah. Or is it that Francis really is insane?
Yeah, did Francis tell a real story or not?
Yeah.
You know? Or is this, you know, is Dr. Caligari the evil one from the book? Or is he an imposter? Is he, like who's Dr. Caligari? Is he
What is
cool
his
or
real
not?
Story?
Yeah.
Can he be trusted? We don't know.
And
that ambiguity seems to me that was probably part of the point, is like, what do you think was the truth? Kind of like one of those philosophical questions, like, what do you think the truth was of the story? You can ask yourself that, or you can just leave it ambiguous for yourself if you want to.
I kind of find that, like, maybe I tend to believe, like, logically, I think that the movie was supposed to make you feel like Francis was the wrong one the whole time.
That
like,
Francis was crazy and telling this crazy tale.
I can see from their perspective maybe that was supposed to be a clear ending. But also, is it? Because this was, maybe it's not, and it's just kind of our 2020 minds not really understanding, like, the flow of story and that was told
maybe
back
the
then.
Nuances we might have been missing.
Yeah.
Like maybe there's little clues in there that tell you the truth.
Yeah, it's like, is the movie ambiguous in itself, or is it because there's so much time has passed that there is ambiguity?
That we think it's ambiguous. Yeah, that's a good question.
It's interesting to take our 2020 mind and time travel
back 100 years.
Yeah. Okay, so again, I want to apologize to that clerk, and thank you for joining us
once again. We appreciate your journey here with us.
Your journey, your patience,
cabinet
your
of Dr.
love.
Caligari.
I hope you enjoyed it and you
as
join
much
us
as we did
next time. Oh, and before we go, 10 out of 10 movie, but just watch it. Yeah,
it's a really good one.
If you're a horror movie, this is like fanatic and you like the history of it, you like watching old movies, kind of seeing if you're just interested. I can see, like I was saying beforehand on the other podcast, the Lost podcast, that like I can see why maybe Nosferatu is kind of a waste of your time.
A little unpalatable.
Yeah.
Like
so in the Golem.
It's good. It's worth it. It's definitely worth it to see the iconography of it, but it wasn't anything to really be all like, wow.
Yeah,
there were some moments that didn't make sense, and some things that were actually funny to me,
more comical.
Yeah.
But I think that this is why this one specifically is referenced a lot, is because it really came together.
Yeah.
Like they nailed. I think they accomplished what they set out to do, which is make a truly disturbing film.
Yeah.
Great.
I agree.
All right, so watch it.
Have a good time. Thanks for joining us.
TTYL.